loves, welcome back. I'm Taylor Schuler. This is where you'll get your horoscopes on thriving with astrology and more. Today, we'll talk about the new moon in Virgo and this first quarter moon phase from August 27th to September 2nd. This new moon, we're thinking about how we can start something new based on our personal experiences and observations that will contribute to the bigger picture, specifically related to passing on skills to younger generations. But before we get into the lunation itself, I'd like to cover some key aspects that will color this energy for the next week or so. The first of these aspects is Venus square Uranus that happens early in the morning on August 27th. Venus represents what we value and how we relate to other people. Uranus is about inspiration, change, futuristic or forward-thinking science or technologies. So look for inspiration, get creative, especially in response to any changes that you experience or things that you want to start now and grow over the next 9 months to 2.5 years. One way to get creative is to look at what's on the edges or on the fringes and value the marginal, whether that's the edge of your garden or your lawn or part of your neighborhood that you don't regularly visit, or people that you don't I think I already said that, people you don't already regularly visit. Sometimes the answers are right in front of us and we just need to look a little bit more carefully to see that we already have everything that we need. Another way to use this energy is if we think about Venus being in the fun fire sign of Leo and Uranus being an earthy Taurus. So perhaps you have a bonfire or a barbecue that helps to bring people together for a common cause. The next aspect that we have is Sun square Mars, just a little bit later, but still the morning of August 27th. Sun square Mars is going to be an opportunity to express our authentic selves through the actions that we take, and at the same time, see how the threads tie through many generations. This energy is really key to the new moon, so we'll jump into it now. Now, the new moon is where we can start or renew something related to the Virgo parts of our lives, since this is the new moon in Virgo. You'll have to see what house Virgo rules in your chart to learn more about that. And I do offer consultations, so if you're interested in learning more about how this energy applies specifically to you, you can book with me on my website. There's a link in the notes below. The sign of Virgo is about developing expertise. It's about learning, or rather leaning into a heart-centered place of discernment, like, is what I'm going to say actually going to be helpful? Virgo's all about improvement, healing, and passing that knowledge on so that the future is a little bit better. With the Sun square Mars being a prominent aspect of this lunation, like I mentioned, taking action to protect younger generations and the future after we understand what's wrong is going to be key. Virgo's really great at figuring out what's wrong. And this week, the invitation is, instead of pointing out how to fix it to someone else, ask yourself how you would be part of the solution, and if there's a younger person that you can mentor. I am a permaculture practitioner, and so I think it's really cool that permaculture is a great example of this. It was originated by Bill Mollison, who was a senior tutor at a university, and David Holmgren, who was a student in the 1970s. Bill and David, so Bill was older, David was younger, and David says that Bill was not just a tutor to him as a student, but that they had this mentor-mentee, father-son relationship. They did also argue quite a bit, but that's probably where the father-son energy came in. They went on to become co-authors of Permaculture 1, which was published in 1978. And I should say, for those who aren't familiar, permaculture is a nature-based design system. It has 3 ethics: fair share, earth care, and people care, and 12 design principles so that we can create sustainable or regenerative structures that we need, whether it's your garden and making abundant food forests, or astrology, or really anything. We'll talk about this more on this channel at another time, but I want to come back to this new moon and this some other examples, because there's some other really cool examples. But it's awesome that they wrote that book and that knowledge remains today. So it's an example of, there was Bill the mentor, David the student, and they wrote this book, and now there's so many permaculture teachers, and that knowledge will go on. I mean, I benefited from it myself. Another example of people who have the Sun in Virgo and Mars in Gemini, which is where they are now, includes Sarah Tuttle, an American astrophysicist who has produced a number of studies on gender bias And she emphasizes the importance of supporting scientists from underrepresented groups. So she saw an issue and she knows how important it is to actually do something about it to make a difference for the future. Van Morrison, he has the Sun in Virgo square Mars in Gemini, and he passed down his musician skills to his daughter and toured with her. Another musician, Julio Iglesias, actually first a soccer player turned famous musician after injuries from a car accident ended his athletic career. He passed his skills on to his son, pop singer Enrique Iglesias. Randy St. Clair is an American baseball pitcher whose father was a major league catcher and his brother played in the minor leagues. Baseball's a great example because we have that classic image of playing catch and talking. Both are very Gemini. Gemini's the hands, Gemini's talking while doing a Mars thing. You know, Mars is very athletic and they're playing a sport. So maybe find someone, play catch, have a conversation. Sometimes just being present and being there for someone means a lot. I will also mention that it's no surprise that the polio vaccine is back in the news again. Polio was first announced when Mars and Uranus were conjunct in Capricorn in March of 1911, about to move into Aquarius to square the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio. Now, we have the nodes in Taurus and Scorpio now, and we just had Mars and Uranus conjunct the North Node in the sign of Taurus. It's a similar kind of stressful energy. And there's similar zodiac signs as well. So that was the first time it popped up. Also, then in August of 1960, when the sun was in Virgo and Mars was in Gemini, again, where those two planets are now, you know, that Mars, Uranus, North Node, that was a little earlier this summer. That's when we first heard about polio. But now we've got the sun in Virgo and Mars in Gemini. That happened in 1960 as well. We saw another development in the polio vaccine. It received a license at that point in time. So don't be surprised if this week you do hear something else about that developing. Hopefully in a positive light, because we did see the license come out. And so that may come up. I think virtual learning will likely come up as a topic of conversation again this week. In September 1958, we had Sun in Virgo, Mars in Gemini, like we do now, and Little Rock, Arkansas moved their in-person learning, because what did we do in the 50s, like in-person learning, to an earlier form of virtual learning, television for a few days while the schools were shut down. So hopefully this time it comes up more of a, why not let kids like watch videos on YouTube if they're helpful and direct their own learning, you know, maybe Montessori style or something like that, rather than the kind of forced virtual learning that the pandemic and the situation in Little Rock created. And of course, there's the student loan forgiveness conversation. Thinking about better ways to educate ourselves and our children is a huge opportunity during this new moon that we can take advantage of. This is that sort of, if you see something that needs protecting, if you know something that needs fixing, do something about it kind of energy. All right, so that is the new moon. Now, the next day, about a day and a half later, we're going to see Venus in Leo oppose Saturn in Aquarius. That's going to happen on August 28th in the evening. And so Venus, again, represents beauty, relationships, what we value, and Saturn can be working hard to create a container or structure. With Saturn in Aquarius, this is this forward-thinking, long-term, future-oriented structure that we can create to capture what we value for a rainy day. Sometimes it just means we need to know when enough is enough and then take time to love, appreciate, and value ourselves, some alone time, because it'll be in our best interest or somehow support a long-term goal that is good for the greater good for the world. The next thing we'll talk about is September 1st, because it's September. Happy September. Can you believe it? I can't. The numerology of September is that September is a 6 universal month. 6 is a Venus number, and 2022 happens to be a 6 universal year. And so we have this double rainbow kind of energy. Venus can be about what I mentioned before, in addition to sort of a perfection and a completion when it comes to numerology. Venus is in Leo. It's going to go into Virgo during this month. And I was recently on a podcast with my wonderful friends and colleagues Kate and Mallory. I will put a link to that here so that you can see our September forecast. It's really exciting. We had a wonderful conversation. I said it was this be nicer, leave energy. And so we have this beauty and perfection and becoming and healing and sharpening a skill that helps other people and in discernment. That's going to be really key for the month of September. And then the final thing that we'll talk about is later on September 1st, late morning, we have Mars in Gemini, sextile Jupiter in Aries. This is big push energy. This is, we've got the energy. Let's be courageous. Let's do something. Let's take action. And also let's do it and make sure that when we're doing this, we're actually capturing it, because, you know, there's rainy days down the road, the days when we don't want to have any energy and we don't want to do stuff. So how can we think about taking this like real fast moving, big energy to make a difference and start something, carrying that new moon energy forward? How can we make that long term? How can we make that last? How can we make that sustainable? So there's some thoughts. Get out there and thrive. You make the world a better place just by being in it. I'll see you again soon. Bye.
If you enjoyed the episode, please take a second to rate and review. Each review helps us to find more heart-centered, forward-thinking folks just like you. Don't forget to take a screenshot, share it in your Instagram stories, and tag me at Taylor Schuler Astrology. If you're interested in an astrology consultation with me, you can book online at my website, taylorschuler.com.